What is what is up, ladies and gents? This is George Bean, and for this Shocktober season, I am doing a feature-length fan commentary on the 1996 slasher film Scream. As you might have known earlier, when I started my reviews back 4 years ago, at least 4 years ago, I have done a review for this film, but over the past 4 years, my opinions and have changed and evolved since then, and I figured I have more information to discuss. And what better way to do that than via a feature-length commentary on this film? So, if you wish to sync up the commentary with your own copy of the film, I recommend putting the timestamp to 0 and pressing play now. Here we have the Dimension Films logo. It's the first film I've seen with the Dimension logo. Now, first thing I wanted to say, make it very clear here, is that you could say that I am a Scream apologist. This film is tied with the original John Carpenter Halloween film. Those two films are on the they're both tied up as my #1 favorite slasher film on my list. The others on my list, of course, being Friday the 13th and Black Christmas. And along with other films like The Shining and many others that I can't list right now. And here we have our first phone call, the very first one that started all. Introduced to Drew Barrymore as Casey. It's quite funny because this movie was, I do like the landscape around here, the California suburban look here. And of course, Chippy Pop. I tried that popcorn many times before. It's actually pretty good. But what I should mention here is that what Casey says here when talking about movies, when she talks about The Nightmare on Elm Street, she says, the first one was good, the sequel sucked. The irony to it is that director Wes Craven, who had directed the original Nightmare, had genuinely disliked the sequels, and there's a reason why. When he was making the first Nightmare film, he sold the rights to it to New Line Cinema to keep the film afloat. And so when it came to New Line making the sequels, Wes was not paid so much as a dime in compensation for them. So understandably, he was furious for that. And also, Wes had never intended for there to be any sequels. The first film was supposed to be a one-off, but New Line confidently wanted sequels. So, yeah. Well, he did get compensated for when he made the New Nightmare in 1994. And now I've heard that his family estate had gained back the rights to the Nightmare series and Freddy in the US. So, nice little bit of recent info there in recent history. It's quite funny because this movie was actually what had made me paranoid about intruders and home invasions. The idea that someone could break into your house with malicious intentions. It's a thing that could actually happen in real life, and it has happened. The most prominent example being that serial killer Danny Rolling, or the Gainesville Ripper in Florida in 1990, when he murdered 5 college students just as the school season was just about to start. And even when the murders were happening, the town of Gainesville was on high alert. Every citizen in that town that had went out to purchase new door locks and even guns for protection. But yeah, intruders and home invasions were like an underlying fear of mine that I had as a kid growing up. So for like almost 20 years, I spent every night making sure all the doors in my house were locked and all the windows were closed. I've never had an intruder, but you just never know. It can happen at any time, so I am a little paranoid to this day, thanks to this movie and the 1974 film Black Christmas. But to also mention, incidentally, the writer of this film, Kevin Williamson, had once said that when he was writing this film's script, he was partly influenced by the Gainesville Ripper murders, and I could see some influences in this film. He was partly influenced by the Gainesville Ripper murder, such as the murders happening on school time and the town being on high alert and issuing curfews for the student body's safety. But what I should mention as well is exactly why this film became such a big success. In the early 90s, the horror genre was almost practically dying at that point. It was riddled by that point it was riddled with sequels to older franchises from the 70s and 80s, most of which were direct to video, including Halloween and Friday the 13th and even Hellraiser and even Child's Play, the Chucky movies. So, uh, some people had even predicted that the horror genre would die out the same way as the Western genre. So, when this film was coming out, it was just another horror film that people didn't pay attention to. So, so some even labeled its release date as DOA. It was released on the release date was a huge risk. It was being released on December 20th, a few days before Christmas. So that was a big, huge risk at the time. But when it was released, the film was a massive, surprisingly massive success. I mean, it received hugely positive reviews at the time, and at the box office, it made over $170 million worldwide at the box office. It made it at that time the highest grossing film in the slasher film genre. So it may not seem like much money now, but at that time that was a lot of money for a slasher film. It was like a very huge hit. Despite having competition from other box office fares such as Tom Cruise's Jerry Maguire and Tim Burton's Mars Attacks. So, yeah, and it was still for over 20 years the highest grossing slasher film up until last year with the release of the 2018 Halloween film, which overtook its status. So, and the reason it was a success is because it offered something original. It was more of a self-aware film where the characters were self-aware of what was going on, self-aware about horror movies. So it was like a big fat love letter to the slasher fans. So it's understandable as to why it was a huge success at the time. And it was the second time that Wes Craven had reinvigorated the slash genre, his first being The Nightmare on Elm Street. And this is cool how Casey's brother Steven gets gutted. In the unrated version, you can actually see his guts falling out. But in the theatrical, that was cut out due to the MPAA riding on Craven's back yet again. But one thing I didn't mention in my review, it said that in the script, all it described for the killer was that he was wearing a mask, and that was it. So Wes asked Kevin if the killer was wearing anything else to hide his identity, and Kevin, being a little sarcastic, said, "Hey, that's your problem. I'm just a writer." So yeah, as a result, Wes had to improvise on the whole costume for the killer, and funnily enough, the cloak was actually initially colored white to make the killer appear more like a ghost. But it was the producer who thought it'd be more scarier if the cloak was instead black. And that was how the Ghostface costume had came to be the very thing we now have. That's the scary part where the killer passes down the hall, a quick flash, scary part. But anyway, with that, I will say I do like how the mask looks. It looks really freaky the first time you see it. It did creep me out as a kid. It is certainly a mask you would never forget nor ever leave your memory for a long time. And I saw the other different designs for the mask. Some of them look ghoulish, others look monstrous-like, but they don't look right. I prefer the way this mask looks. It looks more subtle. It's just a ghost-like mask, and it looks like it's screaming. I think they did a great choice for this kind of mask here. It's a very creepy thing. I do love the part where Casey is looking in the house and she sees the killer sneaking about in the house. But now, the shot coming up here of Casey being stabbed in the chest. Once again, the MPAA was really on Craven's back over this shot. They insisted that it be cut from the film for being quote-unquote too intense. However, Craven claimed to them that he had only one take of this shot and could not replace it with something less intense. And so the MPAA had no choice but to allow the scene to stay in. The crazy thing about that was that Craven had actually lied to them. He did have a few more takes of that shot. Having had a history of bad blood with the MPAA since the 70s with the last house on the left, he went so far as to lie to them by this point to get around their demands. That cheeky fucker. And this is a sad moment here. Casey bleeding out, and she's within view of her parents who are walking up to the front door, and yet she's unable to call for their help. It's moments like this that makes this movie good. It has characters that you do actually feel and care for, and when they do die. I always thought it seemed crazy there that it looked like she unmasked him, and her face, it's like as if she recognized him. That's how I see it as. And this was a huge shock to audiences. I mean, Drew Barrymore was a huge star at that time and was advertised as the lead star in this, so to see her get killed off 10 minutes into the film was a huge shock. It's definitely paying homage to Psycho, where Janet Leigh was expected to be the star in that film, but was then killed off halfway through. That's a nice little homage to Halloween. Drive down to the Mackenzies. But I do really feel bad for the mother here, seeing her dead daughter now. And here we are formally introduced to our protagonist of this film and the overall series, Sidney Prescott, played brilliantly by Neve Campbell. As I've said before in my review for this film, Sidney is like my #1 all-time favorite horror film heroine ever, more so than any other. I'm not entirely sure how or why Sid, out of every other, but it just happened when I was a very young kid. She became the one that struck a chord with me the most. I mean, even to admit embarrassingly, even as a young kid, I had even had a minor crush on her. I was like this little brat kid becoming love-struck by a fictional character in a movie. Here sits Dad. I'm an important red herring in this movie. You know that, Sydney? Remember this face, okay? Okay. Alright, see you later. Bye for now. See you in the third act. Now to say, Skeet Ulrich here, who plays Billy here, in a way, he actually does look a bit like Johnny Depp in The Nightmare on Elm Street, which is exactly what Wes had intended here. I have seen him in the show at Jericho, and I thought he was good in that, and now he's in the new CW show Riverdale. Another little trivia fact is that this was actually Nev Campbell and Skeet Ulrich's second collaboration on the film. The first being in the supernatural teen horror film The Craft, which was also released in 1996. Nev and Skeet both claim that having already worked together before, it helped made them more comfortable working together on this film. What I'm about to say is a bit oddball to mention, but whenever I hear the name Skeet, just kept thinking of that old Nickelodeon show called My Cousin Skeeter. That was back when channels like Nickelodeon, Disney Channel, and Cartoon Network used to show some pretty kick-ass, awesome shows back then in the 2000s. Now they show crap. A lot has changed in 10 years. I also like how Billy's last name is Loomis, in reference to Dr. Loomis in Halloween, and the character also named Loomis in the movie Psycho. It's nice little Easter egg references. You can tell that that this film was a big fat love letter to fans of the slasher film genre. Now, to bring up this I like here is the fact that there is absolutely no nudity in this R-rated slasher film. Proof that your slasher film doesn't really need nudity in it. But I just hope to be thankful that Harvey Weinstein didn't get his grubby hands on this film, too. He was a sick mogul predator, and I hope he rots in hell. Now, there's something I haven't mentioned about yet, which is how Wes Craven had gotten the job of directing this film, and the other choices of directors considered. Now, when the script was being shopped around studios for bidding, the final two bidders were the Weinsteins of Dimension Films, and weirdly enough, Oliver Stone, of all people. Yeah, apparently Oliver Stone was at one point interested in directing Scream. But the Weinsteins had finally purchased the script by offering Williamson a bid of $400,000 from their parent company, Miramax Films, plus to which he agreed, plus a contract for two Scream sequels, and a fourth unrelated film, which of course would be Teaching Mrs. Tingle. And very early on in the film's prepping, Craven was approached by Bob Weinstein, who felt that his body of work and genre, combining horror and comedy, had made him a perfect choice for bringing Williamson's script to screen. But Craven was at that point already busy in developing a remake of The Haunting, and was also considering distancing himself from the horror genre, having grown weary of what he felt was an inherent misogyny and violence in it, which is understandable why he considered leaving the genre. So after turning it down, several other directors were approached, including Robert Rodriguez, Danny Boyle, George A. Romero, and even Sam Raimi. But Williamson felt that those directors didn't get it, as many of them believed that the film to be purely a comedy, and so Craven was approached again, but he continued to turn it down repeatedly. But then production on the Haunting remake had collapsed, leaving Craven free from that commitment, and he found himself in need of a project, and so he immediately went back to the Weinsteins and finally agreed to sign on to Scream. And to be honest, and I'm saying this in full honesty and pushing aside the fact that I'm a huge Wes Craven fan, but I am glad that Craven had directed this film, because the Weinsteins was quite correct on this one. he was the perfect choice to direct such a film like this, having had this similar experience before. Up until Scream, Craven has had over 20 years of horror films under his belt, so this really did make him the best choice for Scream. As far as I am concerned about Scream being directed by, say, Rodriguez or Raimi or even Oliver Stone, I don't think it worked out as well as it did, nor possibly even had the chance had become as successful as it actually did. I believe Williamson was wise with this argument. Those other directors didn't get the approach he was going for. They would have made this film as a full-on comedy, and it probably would not have translated well onto screen. So I strongly argue that this film was safe in Craven's hands. And another thing to mention is that this film was actually never initially titled Scream at all. Its original title was Scary Movie, believe it or not. But as the film, and it was even called that throughout its production, but as it was nearing completion, the Weinsteins had ultimately decided to change the title to Scream. They considered Scary Movie to be an unsuitable title, as, in addition to the horror and violence, the film contained elements of satire and comedy, and he wished for that to be better conveyed by the new title. But funnily enough, Craven and Williamson had actually disliked the new title right away, and considered it stupid. But after the film's release, they had both later remarked that the change turned out to be positive, and that Weinstein had been wise to pick the new title. But as fate would also show, the original Scary Movie would eventually be used for the 2000 horror parody, which would spoof Scream in an I Know What You Did Last Summer. And oh man, I can't believe that Matthew Lillard would go on to play Shaggy in the live-action Scooby-Doo movies. I still cannot believe it. He's really good as Shaggy in those movies. And I still like him as Stu in this film. I even liked him as Dennis in the 2001 remake of 13 Ghosts. He was like the best thing in that movie. Hey, here's a good joke. The other day, I asked my girlfriend, I'd like a little pussy. She said, me too. Mine's as big as a house. You see, she said that her house was big as a house. I've heard of how the film's music composer, Marco Beltrami, claimed that when he was doing the score for this film, he had instead chosen to approach it as a Western film. And that had really oddballed me. But now when I think about it more, especially the Sydney's Laments piece in this scene, it feels like a Western. It's set in a small Western town that's being terrorized by a cold-blooded bandit. One of the protagonists is a law enforcement officer, and many things like that. But I will say, this one shot when Sydney is on the phone with Tatum, and behind her we see the Californian hilly landscape. I just have to say, I'd say that this is a beautiful shot in the scene. I think that is one of many things I have to compliment for Wes Craven as a director. I mean, I know he has had a few hits and misses, but my good, could he direct very well in this film? He makes the California landscape look so perfect here. And here we get to explore the backstory of Sydney, that her mother Maureen had died or was brutally raped and murdered a year earlier, and it has had a huge dramatic effect on her. I always prefer it when we explore a character when they're alone. I will say again, I heard that Drew Barrymore was originally casted to play Sydney, but scheduling conflicts wouldn't allow that, so she chose to play Casey. And I'm glad of the choice here. I think Nev Campbell did a absolutely brilliant job playing Sydney here. I think she was the best choice for this role. She gave the character a sense of humanity. I do like the shot coming up of the sunset behind Sydney's house. Once again, it starts to feel like a repeat of the very opening scene where everything starts quiet until the phone call happens. And the very first phone call between Sydney and the killer. Hello, Sydney. The call that would start her life of horror and terror that would haunt her for the rest of her life. I do love the line she says that her critique about horror movies. What's the point? They're the same. Some stupid breasted killer running up the stairs when she should be running out the front door. It's insulting. Well, it's not always about that, Sid. That's the best critique about horror I've ever heard. I love when she says that. And of course, things turn serious. I like when the score starts to get intense. Not not like today's horror movie scores where they're more bombastic and unnecessary. I don't think I would want to go outside unless I have my baseball bat, my aluminum baseball bat. All I need is just one swing, and that's it, across the head. I always wondered how the killer managed to get in her house. Did he sneak in through the front door while she was looking? Over here. Turn around. Want some candy? Oh man. I'm now referencing Predator on this. Shit happens anytime. Imagine if the Predator did show up. The whole movie plays out up until now, and then the Predator shows up and kills the killer. Tells us what's happened, and Sid would be like, "Oh, the house came alive and took him." That'd be really funny, if you ask me. Starts off a scream, and then the Predator shows up. This is some freaky shit. And this is a great moment. This is her very first encounter and first fight against the killer. And yet Sid manages to hold her own against the killer armed with a knife. It's another reason I'm a fan of this character. She's essentially a survivor. Trust me. You'll be dead before your nervous system registers what sort of pain you're in. Cool moment when she kicks him, and she does go for the front door, but it's locked. Didn't have time, so she runs up the stairs. Nice subversion there. And, well, the killer is wearing a ghost mask, so I think Sid could have solved her problem if she'd have called the Ghostbusters. And I mean the original. Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Ernie Hudson. I think that would have solved her problem much better. Scary movie spoof this. White Woman in Trouble. And of course, he Batmans his way out of there, and suddenly Billy shows up. And right away, I love how it really plays up the whodunit mystery. We'll talk about that soon, but makes us immediately suspect that Billy might be the killer. She starts to have the doubts and is backing away from him. Great moment. Nice little jump here with the mask. I love how Sid screams bloody murder and Dewey turns and screams too. Nice bit of humor there. Now I just want to bring up David Arquette as Dewey Riley was an absolutely brilliant casting choice. Something I noticed in these films, especially in the first two, is that he is obviously shown to be very protective of Sydney, and is often trying to be there to help her through situations. And also, there are even subtle hints that indicates that Dewey kind of views Sydney as like a surrogate sister to him, given that how Dewey's true sister Tatum is best friends with Sid, so it's actually understandable why, as I see it, he'd see her as a somewhat surrogate sister. I like Tatum's choice of car, a Volkswagen Bug. I gotta get around to reviewing The Love Bug. That's a great movie. And of course we are to suspect Billy of being the killer. Awfully convenient that he would be walking towards Sydney's house at about the same time when the killer appears in these past 2 days. Like when Casey is murdered and when Sid is almost attacked by the killer. I love that there. When when Gail and Kenny arrives, Gail says, "Jesus, get the camera," and Kenny's like, my name isn't Jesus. Great funny bit from Kenny. Kenny has some of the best lines in this movie. Also, I love the dialogue in this film. It's very quirky, self-aware, and it's funny. It's a nice little change for horror movie cops, especially in this scene, because you know how in most other horror movies, cops are always shown to be useless, doing jack shit, not even send some of their own fellow cops to the house. But here we have a cop who is a brotherly friend to Sydney and is willing to help her overcome her problems. So yeah, I believe that is a nice little touch for Dewey. It makes him out as being more than just some lazy, stupid cop in a horror movie. I do need to say that I am a very huge fan of the whodunit genre, and this film here was the very first film I had watched that had deeply intrigued me into that genre, and it was fueled even further in my mid-teens when I had gotten to read the Agatha Christie book 10 Little Indians, And Then There Were None. And so I believe that this film had done a very good job in depicting the whodunit mystery in it, in how it brings up red herrings and suspects and clues, and especially in how it handles presenting clues as to who might be the killer. Our prime suspects are mostly Sydney's friends, especially Billy. And even Sid's own father, Neil. It's nice little moments. But yeah, I think the movie does a really fantastic job with the mystery. It really leads us to believe that Billy is the killer. To play with our suspicions, subvert them, and still surprise us. Pretty brilliant pretty brilliant acting from Skeet, playing it as the innocent boyfriend. I do like the how the Ghostface costume is like a regular costume and it says Father Death on there. In a weird way to me, I kind of view Ghostface as being like Sydney's own Grim Reaper. Everywhere she goes, this guy, this Grim Reaper like figure, follows her wherever she goes, and everyone who's close to her just dies around her. So yeah, I kind of see Ghostface as being Sydney's Grim Reaper. I do love the brother-sister relationship between Dewey and Tatum. That's the type of attitude you would see between brothers and sisters. I had that with my sister. I love when she calls Dewey Doofus. But and the best bit here is when Sydney and Gail meet outside, and they talk about the book. And Gail says to Sid, "I'll send you a copy," referring to her book, and then Sydney Falcon punches her in the face. It's so funny. It's coming up. It's great. God, I love that. Great moment. I heard I heard that Williamson's heard that scene alone got the script sold. Kick-ass moment from Sid, punching a reporter in the face in front of live cameras. But I do also like coming up. Sid gets another phone call and it's from the killer again. And he says, "Looks like you picked the wrong guy again." Playing with her mind again, doubting if whether or not Billy is the killer. And I like it how, Dewey is nowhere to be found. We even are somewhat to suspect him too, because as soon as the phone call ends, he then appears. Nice little tidbits for the mystery. I do love he picks up the phone and says hello. I do like the choice of the song Red Right Hand. And oh yeah, Liev Schreiber coming up. It's weird to see Liev Schreiber in such a small bit in this film, just 5 seconds as Cotton Weary. It must have been a surprise for him to read the script to read the Scream 2 script and realize his role is expanded more. He must have been one. He must have thought of himself as one lucky bastard. I also remember him in X-Men Origins Wolverine as Sabretooth. I thought he was good in that too. But yeah, we have a cameo here from Linda Blair, who played the child in The Exorcist as a TV reporter. She looks pretty good there. How does it feel? How does it feel to be a new Scream Queen, Sid? But this is a nice scene here where, Sid and Gail argue over, about Cotton Weary and whether or not if he did murder Sid's mother, Maureen, whether he really did do it or if he was framed, casting even further doubt. It's like, I'm always never a fan of the show don't tell thing, but the explanation here is very helpful for the film because you get to learn more, and also adds even further elements to the whodunit mystery. It reminds me of a similar thing that happened in the 1980 slasher film Prom Night, where a person was framed and imprisoned, and then he escapes, and we suspect that he may be the killer throughout the movie Prom Night, but yeah, thing like that. And Gail suspecting that Cotton might actually be innocent. It's great moments to show that Gail is not some dim-witted reporter. She's looking for the true answers. Nice little moments in the high school, showing regular school life. Of course, a kid pranking around wearing the costume. It also adds further to the upcoming bathroom scene. And Billy here almost feels like he really does seem like a bit of a dick here, putting further pressure on Sydney. I mean, she's still getting over her mother's death. It takes a while to rail from that. It does take a very huge toll on a person like that. And Billy also mentions that his mother left, That's an important thing to remember as well. I don't know. I would want to be as supportive to Sydney if I was her boyfriend. And here, Henry Winkler. I do know that he was in that old show called Happy Days, but I actually remember that old Happy Days spin-off show in the 80s called Mork and Mindy, which starred Robin Williams as Mork. I watched a marathon of it, and that show was funny. If you get a chance to find Mork and Mindy on DVD, go check it out. Robin Williams was great in that. I do have to say, his scissors he used here is ridiculously big. I do think we are supposed to suspect that he may also be the killer too, given the way that he touched Sydney's chin earlier in the film. Bit creepy for him to touch a student. But I will say here, this bit here, this this bathroom scene, uh, Williamson was considering removing this scene as he felt it was awkward and out of place in the film. But Craven insisted that that the scene should remain in the film, as he felt that it helped further develop the character and her relationship with her deceased mother. And thankfully, Williams later confirmed that he was glad that Craven had proved him wrong about the scene. There were times in movies where your protagonist, where you can get to have your protagonist shown as at their weakest moment. It makes them more sympathetic, in my opinion. We don't get that like that anymore. And this is a really nice scene here with the bathroom scene. It's really creepy to think that the killer was in, that this costumed guy was in here the whole time. And this part here where she hears something. I was not aware that that you could hear the person say Sydney in a whispery way. Really creepy. But I wonder, was it the killer here that comes out, or was it just another prankster? We are never explained, but it makes. But I just wonder because not once do I ever see him with the knife anywhere when he comes out. Although although he does wear the same type of boots. I think that's Billy, if you ask me. Nice slide she made to avoid him. There was supposed to be a deleted scene where she runs into Principal Himbry's office and tells him about the incident in the bathroom, and that was to be lead to his decision to what's it called, end school early. And this is a nice scene between Dewey and Gale, to see them. It's really cute to see them together, given how by the time Scream 3 is made, these two would end up getting married. the David Arquette and Courtney Cox. Of course, they would later divorce after finishing Scream 4. But I also wonder, what kind of parents named their daughter Gail, knowing that their last name is Weathers. Those must be some harsh parents to name their kid Gail Weathers. And it also sounds like the name for a weatherman or a weather reporter. That's just me. Gail. But it's the moment here where Stu announced a party at his house. Yo, party at Stu's house. Drunk white women for everybody. But yeah, this scene that's here with Principal Henry when he gets killed. Bob Weinstein, when he was reading the script, Hembry's death wasn't supposed to happen. It didn't actually happen in the original script. While reviewing the script, Bob Weinstein realized that there were 30 pages without a murder in between Casey's and Tatum's, so he instructed Williamson to have another character killed. And so Williamson included the death of Principal Hembry based on this input. And in doing so, Hembry's death had actually inadvertently resolved a problem that Williamson had in the script's finale. We'll get to that part, but here's a cameo by Wes Craven as the janitor Fred. He even has the costume, like the fedora hat and red-green sweatshirt. I love that how he calls Hembry a prick. What you hear Wes Craven say prick. That's brilliant. Yeah, I'll remember that, folks. Hembry's death, it actually resolved a problem in the finale that Williamson had. We'll get to that part near the end when it happens. But this is a cool moment when Ghostface jumps out from behind the door. It's very freaky. Like, surprise! It's a great moment. I also love the shot of Hembry's eye, and you see Ghostface reflected in the eye. It's a great shot. And again, more scenes where Sydney is wondering if Cotton was the one who murdered her mother. But she's starting to have a little bit seeds of doubt. What if he wasn't the killer? then the real one is still out there. I heard that Richard Gere or Gerbil's story that executives had a panic over that and told West that if he kept that in the movie that he would be never work in town again. But of course he wasn't. Of course the joke thing was included in the film and he was still working since this film. I do love this bit where you see Ghostface hiding behind the bushes. Video stores. A great place to go to in the 90s and even 2000s. Now they're all gone. I used to have rental stores in my hometown, but now they had closed down because my town has gone to shit. My last rental store I closed down 5 years ago, and now it is a pawn shop, which is fine. I can still get movies from that place, but still, it'd be nice to at least rent a movie every now and then. Grrr. I always wondered how Billy and Stu got to the video store so fast. Woodsboro, I know it's a small town, but it must be hard to, like, be in one place and then another so quick. How could I possibly be in one place? Okay, I'll watch Prom Night now. Jeez, I'm taking the disc out. Hey, wait a minute. I've got a commentary to do here. What the hell am I doing? I'll watch it later. Here, here. Randy suspects Billy, but Stu suspects Sid's father, Neil. Maybe it was the Swan. Apparently, they could break a man's arm or blow up a man's house. Hey. Everybody's a suspect. You'd be proven right if you watch Hot Fuzz, dude. The Millennium. Are you telling me that's not a killer? Nice line there. I do like how we see the town get going into curfew, packing up and heading to their homes. Hey everybody, party's over. Ghostface fucked it up for everybody. Let's pack it up and go home. I do like the shots of Woodsboro. I wish there were more shots of that in this movie. I do also like to mention here the town that tried at sundown. Now that line Sydney says where she jokingly suggests Tori Spelling playing her in the movie, the fact that they had actually gotten Tori Spelling to play Sydney in the Stab movie in the sequel actually makes this joke all the more funnier. Misfit. I think we can all safely say that this film had failed the Bechdel test miserably. But that bit of Ghostface stalking them inside the store, you'd think someone would notice a costume man, similar in dressing into a Ghostface costume, walking around in the store. But nobody ever noticed. It's just like, really? This, but this is a nice little bit of further playing the whodunit aspect, tracing the killer's calls back to Sid's father's phone, making him into even more of a suspect. Yeah. There's a great spoof from 2000 I forgot to mention, but we're gonna mention it until after coming up the scene when we reach the party. And that's the last we ever see of Sheriff Burke. And finally, we get to the house. And finally, we get to the house party third act, or scene 118, as the crew would call it. This entire third act is over 14 minutes long and takes place in and around this one house. The entire final act was shot in over 21 days, and because of this, it was considered the most difficult shoot in the entire production, as it took place entirely in one location, yet featured the individual stories and deaths of multiple characters and actors. Had to spend weeks undertaking emotional and physical scenes while coated in fake blood and wounds. But I will say there that I do love the house here. It looks very suburban and isolated. If I had ever made an action film and filmed in this house, I think I would want to blow it up. But that's just me. But yeah, the actors, especially Nev, Skeet, and Matthew, had to be covered in fake blood and wounds for most of those 21 days. At least most of those days. So I feel really sorry for them to have to go through that. That must have been really stressful for them. The little camera, which will be helpful, at least. But I love the bit when with a set of lungs like that, she should be. I love Sid's face. The face she makes is absolutely hilarious. That deadpan, like, please. I don't know why, but I just love that look. I'm a big fan of deadpan humor. And the little bits like that, when Stu asks Tatum to get more beer, which is in the garage, sending her in there, knowing that Billy is in there too. You wouldn't notice that the first time, but after watching it multiple times, it's catchy. But that look there Sid gives to Gale when they pass by, it almost looks like two cats about ready to fight there. It looked like Sid was about ready to punch her again. And I had noticed on the TV that there are videotapes there, and one of them is for Clerks. This is at a time when Clerks was popular, from Kevin Smith, and it was also distributed by Miramax Films, so go figure. But fucking cat, fuck off! Just a great moment, that spoof from 2000 called Shriek If You Know What I Did Last Friday the 13th. They spoofed the garage scene where the garage door keeps going up and down, because everyone, because they're fighting over the garage control until the garage door engine finally blows up. It's hilarious. That movie Shriek. I gotta review that for y'all. That movie's hilarious. But I love this bit here. It's like the one time in this film where we actually get to see the killer just standing there. For most of the film, he is like mostly running and hectic. But him standing here and even nodding to Tatum's questions makes him seem all the more frightening. And this is the one time where he doesn't use the voice moderator when in the costume. I think it's scarier when he's not speaking here. Hey, Ghostface, Rambo called. He wants his knife back. Imagine if that happened. Ghostface is like, no, and then Rambo shows up and blasts him away with a 50 caliber and just go, Darr! That's a nice shot when she throws the beer bottle at his face. Nice shot. And ducks down, causing him to roll over. Interesting thing is that Rose McGowan could actually fit through the little dog hole in the garage door. The irony. But this is a horrifying way to die, if you ask me, having your neck broken like that. It looks like her neck gets broken. I like how he looks up like, whoa! Explosion. How he whoop-de-doo, like, whoop-de-doo, walks back into the house. It's a great death scene for Tatum. I heard somewhere that that was one of Neve Campbell's favorite death scenes in the film. When Billy shows up here, he gives Stu that look, raising his eyebrows. It's kind of like his signaling to Stu. It's done now, man. Let's make the next move. It almost looks like it's drizzling outside when in these shots. But I do like Stu's red cloak. It reminds me of that red jacket De Niro wears in Casino. I like I like Randy. He's like one of the best ones in this movie. I'm gonna go check on them. That's not creepy at all, is it? Reality TV before it was even popular. But I do love, I do love the scene here. I love the scene. It's moments like this that honestly makes Scream more than just another typical slasher film. It's a horror movie that actually has characterization in it, mainly when it involves Sydney. This is when Sydney and Billy are talking to each other in the bedroom, and Sid expresses how she feels and wanting to move on from her grieving process. It's moments like this that gives us a justified reason to get behind Sydney as a protagonist. We get to sympathize and root for her, and as a result, during the climax, we are completely behind her all the way, and we actually want to see her survive the film. I do like how she mentions the bad seed. This movie has a ton of name-dropping movies. Even the Silence of the Lambs here. But I do like that moment, the moment here when Billy says, "Life is like one great big movie, only you can't pick your own genre." If I was able to pick my own genre, my own movie, my life as a movie, I would love for it to be like an action movie. Be the macho action hero. Have car chases and gunfights and explosions everywhere, like in Last Action Hero. Premature ejaculation, and your first divorce. Jack Slater. I just shot somebody and I did it on purpose. But yeah, that's what Sydney is kind of like. She's like the Jack Slater of the series. Always survives every movie. She's okay. Minor wounds. Everybody else dead. But I do like how the cinematography is in MTV slash style. I like that they're watching Halloween, but their biggest mistake is watching it on box TV. This was before DVDs. They're better off watching it on a big flat screen in letterbox version, like what I am now, believe it or not. It's kind of like watching Star Wars in full frame on a box TV. It'd be a sin. You'd have to watch it in letterbox. I love that moment when Stu says, "Have an aneurysm, why don't you?" It's kind of like he's like, "Oh Christ, there he goes." And Randy laying out the three the rules for horror movies. It's this scene alone that immortalized Scream and immortalized the horror movie rules. Even the rules have been followed in Prometheus and Alien Covenant. I remember watching those and still thinking of the horror rules there. Like, I'll be right back and all that. Go watch those movies with that in mind. It's pretty funny. Kenny's pretty cool. If I was a reporter, I would love to have him as my cameraman. But still, I still love this house. I would love to own that. Just to have that field all around it. Maybe I'm just like that, rural type of guy. It's a pretty cool house. I heard it's been up for sale recently. But I do love how this film cleverly plays around with the sex equals death rule. Having Sydney have sex and lose her virginity really makes us feel afraid that she will now get the knife. But to further elaborate, what also makes Sydney very special to me is how she actually breaks the sex equals death rule and survives. That's something you don't ever see in a lot of slasher films. The only other movie I could think of was The Terminator with Sarah Connor. That is, if you do see that film as a slasher film. But now to bring up Himbry's death here, his death, having been added into the script, inadvertently resolved the problem Williamson had in his script's finale. He had struggled to find a reason for several extraneous characters to leave a party scene, the sub-party, so that the killer could attack. And it was Himbry's death, and it was the announcement of Himbry's corpse that would serve as give them these people the reason to leave the party, to remove the non-essential characters who are so upset that they leave the party before and enabling the start of the murders. It's kind of funny how a new addition helps resolve a problem in your script. I think that happened to me once as an aspiring screenwriter. But they all leave, and the only ones who are left are our main characters. And of course it's high school students. They want to see a dead body. Fucking dead bodies, man! Yeah! And this part always makes me laugh. They're speeding, and they almost run over a police officer. That's like attempted manslaughter of a police officer. He, they're lucky he had dived out of the way. Look at that, man! But it's a pretty clever way for Dewey and Gale to get close and finally kiss. Yay! The kiss! But it's also, to me, awfully convenient that they would stumble across Neil's car empty. But it adds even further suspicion that he might be the killer. The script's whodunit mystery is very intelligent, if you ask me. It's the reason. Thank you, Scream, for getting me into that genre. And it's where things escalate now. But I do like here that, Sydney here starts to, put the pieces together. She starts to have her suspicions. She's learning a few cues from Randy now. How she suspects that Billy might have made the other call as the killer, as a clever way to throw her off track. As I'd like to quote Richard Jackson in his True Lies commentary, all your bullshit's starting to come true. Yep. But here, she plays off her, suspicion as like funny, but his reaction is like this dirty look, like mean, It doesn't. It's like a very suspicious look he would make. You think he would be like, no, it wasn't me, but no. What do I have to prove to you that I'm not a killer? That is not entirely suspicious at all. But this here was absolutely brilliant, making it seem Billy was being attacked by the killer, thereby making us really believe he was innocent. A brilliant way of playing up the mystery and further playing with our expectations. Clever way of psyching us out, like, not once, but twice later on. But something I never noticed, that when he's done stabbing Billy, you can see that he has the handle outward, and he turns around and kind of wipes the blood onto his blade side. Very clever. And slams the door on him. That's great. Whack! Yeah, but no, that's something I never noticed until I watched this a few more times, that he's actually stabbing him with the handle part. Very clever little Easter egg moments that you don't see the first time. But I do like her way to get out of there is to jump out the window and onto the tarped boat. It's a pretty cool moment. Stunt double, no fail me now. It's lucky that boat was there, otherwise she'd have landed on the pavement and blah. That should be, broken like that. But this is a horrifying way to see your friend dead hanging off the garage. I do like in this scene, it's actually pretty good because here we have Randy, drunk of course, watching Halloween on the TV. He's saying, "Watch out, Jamie, behind you." Air. That the way that happens, that da da da, you're just like, and a clever way to pay homage to Halloween when the killer appears. It fits perfectly. It's obvious that Wes did that on purpose. But I also love how Randy says, "Behind you, Jamie." Oh ho ho! It's funny because the real actor's name is Jamie. Oh. Oh, and also, that was actually Skeet Ulrich in the Ghostface costume, because he asked Wes if he could wear the costume for once. So that scene there is Skeet in the costume. But I do love this here. You see the camera feed of Randy and the killer behind him ready to strike. That's so cool there. But that was 30 seconds ago. Oh my god, he killed Kenny! You bastard! Heard they had to cut out his reaction to the throat slit, because they thought that his reaction was too intense. Didn't look that intense when I saw it that time. looked pretty good, genuine. I love how he couldn't fit through that little small space. She fits through fine, but he does, and then he throws his hand down with the knife, like, darn it! And we have Dewey and Gale coming back to the house. I do like how when Dewey searches through the house, you can hear Halloween on playing in the background on the TV, and how it's cued, like when he opens the closet door, and when he runs to the living room pointing the gun, that it's so clever how they cued that together. And I like how nervous he is. I like how it plays him as being nervous. And it was all done in one shot. That's so good there. You don't ever get to see that a lot in most horror movies, you know? Something being done in one shot. But I find this kind of fun. Weird how she never noticed the blood in front of her until she's right there. But hey, that's just me, unless she has horizontal tunnel vision or something. Or never noticed Kenny's dead body on the roof when she was that far away. I don't know. But this pretty cool moment. All the blood on the windshield and it's wiped away. Pretty cool that little moment there. But poor Kenny, you know, gets his throat slit and then gets his body thrown off the van and into a fence. Poor Kenny, man. Oh no, I don't know how to stop this thing. She was going pretty ridiculously fast. That would have left her badly hurt. I like this moment here where she sees Dewey, and it looked like they were about ready to they were about to run for each other until he trips. It's like and showing the knife in his back. It's like he won't stop until he's certain that she's fine and then he finally drops. I heard in the original script he was actually supposed to die, but test audiences loved him so much they changed it to have him live, which is great there. But that's a cool scene here. She locks herself into the police car with the killer outside. Shit, no keys, man. But I do like how he dangles the keys and he taps the window with his knife. I like that. In the background, the back window door just opens behind her. She doesn't notice, but we do. And that's the last time we see Ghostface in the costume from now on. Aside from Sydney later on, but it's, you know. But I like this, how, you know, she's in such emotional toll, and how she points the gun at both, you know, Randy and Stu, and it's the whole "give me the gun" or She never gives them one of them the gun or even shoots them. Instead, she's like, fuck you both, and locks them both out. That's such a smart thing to do there. One of the smartest things a horror film heroine could ever do. It's so great, you know. Of course, she does give Billy the gun, but that's because she just saw him get stabbed by the killer. So you know, as far as she was concerned, he's innocent. And great acting from Billy, acting like he is injured badly and falling down the stairs. But I do love the scene, the way the killer's identity is finally revealed when Billy suddenly turns. It's so great. He suddenly changes. It's not like a literal unmasking like in Scooby Doo. It's more like just a change of personality. I prefer that more than the literal unmasking. Such a great reveal. And it turns out to be not just Billy, but also Stu as well. So it was two killers doing all this. I don't think that is something that hadn't been done before in any like slasher film. Of course, the most prominent mystery example is the mystery book Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie, and even Hot Fuzz. Yeah, this is a pretty intense scene to watch. Get it wrong, you die, but get it right, you die. That's a bit, you know, that's not fair. But I do also like here how they revealed that they were the ones who killed her mother, Maureen. And it was all because of Maureen's infidelity with Billy's father, which caused his mother to leave, and maternal abandonment, and that caused him to snap. Of course, that was later retconned in Scream 3, with Roman Bridger, Sydney's half brother. But now, just in this film, I like the motive here. But concerning the killer's motives, Williams felt it was essential for the audience to learn why they had become killers, but he also felt it was potentially scarier if they had no motivation. Opinions at the studio were split between those who believed the motive was needed for resolution and those who felt the action was scarier without one. But as there were two killers, Williamson, Williamson decided to do both. Billy Loomis had the motive of maternal abandonment, while Stu jokingly suggests peer pressure as his motive when prompted. I do like that there, you know. And I do like this here. He puts the safety on the gun and puts it down in the corner near the door. And he said the title, it's a scream, baby. End the film. And now it's midnight. It's her mom's anniversary. And I like that. They revealed that they've held her father hostage, and intend to make him, like, frame him as being the killer who went snap because of Marine's death. A master plan, like they're playing out their plan like the plot of a horror movie. It's a great plan for this movie, you know. Except both Billy and Stu are to be the survivors. They're supposed to be like the final girl, you know? And this is a dumb move. Sure, stab yourself before killing Sid and her father, rather than doing this after killing them. You know, wounding each other here, when you think about it in the grand scheme, they're basically giving Sydney the advantage in the fights, a future fight, which actually does happen. When they end up fighting her, especially Stu the most, they'll be too wounded to fight her. And and how does it feel to be on the other side of the blade, getting stabbed? I'm sure to them that really hurts. Especially Stu's reaction when he experienced his first stab. He looks so hurt there. Huh. Never expected it to hurt that badly, didn't you? I like this. Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative. Don't you blame the movies. Once again, Wes Craven's critique about how people blame movies for real life violence. Something he also explored in New Nightmare. I like the moment where Sid closed her eyes. It's almost like all hope is lost, but the gun is gone. Thank God for Gale to come around just about now. I like the moment when Billy says, I thought you said she was dead, and Stu says she looked dead. Great moment between them. But this is a cool moment here from Billy when he kicks her. See him go from like this sweet and innocent boyfriend to this cold-blooded monster, angry, cold-blooded monster is such a great performance from Skeet Ulrich. And the moment here where he cracks his neck, that great moment from him. You don't get to see that type of personality change, except for something like Alfred Hitchcock's Shadow of a Doubt. But here, they look away, giving Sid the chance to escape, to run off. But I do like this bit here where Sydney uses their own cat and mouse game against them. I also like it's a cool moment. It's a recurring thing that Wes Craven uses in most of his movies, especially Nightmare on Elm Street and People Under the Stairs. But I also like that it shows how Stu here is obviously wounded very badly. It shows that he's not a superhuman like Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees. And it also shows that Sydney does have a chance to kill them. I like when in my scripts, my characters are human and can bleed. But this bit here coming up, when the phone hits Stu's head and his reaction, that was a genuine reaction from Matthew Lillard. He was really hurt by that phone. This here. Wes loved it so much he kept it in the film, and that makes me laugh. Billy shredding the couch cushions. If I were Stu, I'd be like, you better clean that up, because I'm not paying for that. And those two lines from Stu fucking hit me with the phone, Dick, and my mom and dad are gonna be so mad at me. We're both ad-libbed by him. Wes loved them a lot, so he kept it in the film. And this is a nice little homage again with Halloween with the closet, except it's vice versa. And the one time where Sydney actually gets to wear the costume. It's a nice little bit there. Almost like a superhero moment. She stabs him with the umbrella. Crazy thing was that Skeet had open heart surgery when he was a kid, so when he was stabbed there that second time with the umbrella, he really was hurt by that. That was his real scream. I love that roll there they make. And punched in the face, that was great. She just walks it off. I I always had a thing for you, Sid. Well, somebody's seen Serpico. But I love the moment here when she throws the TV onto his face. Great moment. It just kills him that way, and he electrified and he finally dies. That's that's the reason why I love Sid so much. She's such a strong-willed fighter. You don't get that a lot in most horror movies nowadays. Pack it in, Frank, you silly bastard! That's a great moment. Say hello to your mother. But that shot there where he raises the knife, it's like a little reminiscent of a similar shot in the opening scene when the killer is about to strike Casey, raising the knife in the air. It's like a nice little callback there. But what a great way to end the whole bloodbath. But I love this here, how Sid is paranoid that is he dead or not, but she makes sure here. I love how she does not, as soon as he attempts to get up, she does not hesitate to shoot him in the head. That is some Lethal Weapon 2 shit there. Some Lethal Weapon 2 shit there. It's just been revoked. That's like the best moment when she shoots him in the head. It's from that where I learned that if you want someone who's the killer to if you want to make sure that the killer is dead, always aim for the head. That's something I learned from this movie. I like how we are shown that Dewey is still alive, being sent into the ambulance. I wish we had a scene of Sid and her father near an ambulance, getting well. But I do love the shot of the house here again. Again, if I was to direct an action movie and set in this house, I think I would blow it up. Possibly just the garage part, but just to, do something crazy with that house. But I do like how it pans away and shows the sunrise. Great moment, and great way to end it. And one last scare. Yay, Wes Craven! Woohoo! I love you, man. I still miss you. But I like how it ends with the song Whisper to Scream. I think it's a great song to end the movie on. And also the little title cards of the actors' names along with their face. That's something Craven has been doing since as far back as his first film, The Last House on the Left. And he would do it for the last time with his last film, Scream 4. It's sad that he died a few years ago. I still miss him. Scream. What a great title. But overall, I do still love Scream. This film, Scream. It is still like alongside the original Halloween. They both rank up there as my #1 all-time favorite slasher film on the #1 spot. They both juggle in between in that spot, but Scream is a movie I will always happily defend until the day I die. I'm serious about that. And it's still a great film to watch, if you ask me. The writing is still fantastic. The whodunit aspect is still fantastic. It was still done intelligently well. It plays around with your mind and doubts and suspicions. This may be one of Wes Craven's most well-directed films out there. His direction helps the film, and his ability to combine horror and comedy is done so fluently well that he does a great job doing it. And the fact that it tries to be original by making the characters self-aware of horror movies was at its time an original thing, and it thus reinvigorated the slasher horror genre in a big way. There's a reason why this film became such a huge hit at the time. So overall, just like in my review a few years ago, I am still willing to give Scream a rating of 8.5 stars out of 10. That rating still holds to this day. And it is still one of the best slasher films out there, especially from the 1990s. And Sidney Prescott is still my #1 favorite horror film heroine out there. For many reasons. Known only to me. I could explain it all day, but not right now. And, yeah, I'd still recommend watching Scream. It's still a great movie to watch. And this is the first commentary I've done in a long while since I started this whole series. And hopefully I did a pretty good job on this one. So, let me know what you think of this commentary in the comment section below. This might be my only time doing a commentary because it's so difficult to keep track, and who wants to listen to me for 2 hours straight? But, once again, thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you all enjoyed the commentary to this film. Thank you all ladies and gents. Hope you had a good time enjoying this commentary. And there will also be reviews, like my Super Psycho Sweet 16, and hopefully, if I get the chance, review the Stanley Kubrick version of The Shining before Halloween comes up. So watch out for future reviews this Shocktober season. So, thank you for all, ladies and gents, and until then, I will see you all next time. Peace!